Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Authors on Mission podcast, the podcast that dives deep with experts and trailblazers to the quest to inspire tomorrow's bestsellers. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, and we are going to be chatting with an amazing author today. It is Jean Meltzer. Her heartwarming and witty novels celebrate Jewish love, holidays, and joy while shining a light on important topics like chronic illness representation. So, gather around as we unwrap the secrets behind crafting unforgettable stories this Hanukkah season. Jean, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on.
So good to be here. You know, Danielle, my little sister's name is Danielle, and she was actually the inspiration for my fifth book, the book we probably will be talking about today, The Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. So I already adore you because every time I say your name, I think of my baby sister.
That feels great to know. Danielle's such a common name, but I love meeting people where it's like, something meaningful with the same commonality between the names. That's really fun. But speaking more of your own personal life and your experiences, tell us a little bit more about yourself. You went from writing for television to becoming a best-selling romance author. So what inspired that transition?
So definitely not a linear experience. The truth is, as a young child, I was only good at one thing, writing, much to the chagrin of my Jewish doctor parents who had worked their way out of poverty in the Bronx and Yonkers. I got a C in math and a D in science, but boy, I could always write. So I was like, I wasn't good at anything else. I'm just going to stick with this literature thing. And I wound up at NYU Tisch Department of Dramatic Writing. I thought I was going to be a screenwriter. When I was 16, 17, I was accepted into Tisch, and I had sort of a list of what I wanted with my life. I wanted to be a TV producer. I wanted to live in an apartment in Manhattan with wood floors and white walls. And especially I wanted to eat really fancy pastas from fancy grocery stores with names like Balducci's. So I went through Tisch, I graduated, I wound up developing reality television for a TV production company. And by the age of 24, I had sold my first format to the Discovery Channel for a daily educational series, and also had won a national daytime Emmy for Outstanding Children's Series. So as 24, I was able to have those wood floors and white walls. I was a TV producer in New York. I was eating fancy pastas with fancy names for places like Balducci's, and I was utterly unhappy. I sort of had an experience going home for Rosh Hashanah, and I realized I was living for my goals and not my values. So I decided I was going to go on sort of a journey, spiritual journey, and try to live for my values. So I went back to the only value system I knew, the value system I had grown up with that I hadn't paid much attention to, Judaism. I spent 5 years in rabbinical school until the chronic illness I had forced me to withdraw. And long story short, 10 years later, I would essentially combine my two loves, which were writing and Judaism, into my first Jewish romance novel, The Matzo Ball, which would completely change my life, my career, and my trajectory once again.
Wow, I absolutely love that story. And I think, first off, amazing that you're able to eat such fancy pastas and all of that, like the dream. But I love that quote you used after that, like you were living for your goals and not your values. I think that's a really important tidbit to hold on to. And I can see now that you've learned that, you've really transformed yourself, and here you are now just thriving, getting to, read and write the books that you want to create. So that's beautiful. And how many books do you have now under the romantic Jewish romance category?
5 books, all of them are Jewish rom-coms. So proud of that fact. 10 years ago, it wasn't even an idea really in the world. And we've made so much progress in that sort of genre and area. to the point where just going through airports now to do events, my books are sitting there right between the vitamin water and the chips. My books are in Target, like physically in Target. And that didn't happen 6 years ago, that you would see stories uplifting Jewish life, Hanukkah romances. So it has been an amazing journey and an amazing culture change as well.
Well, that's incredible, and congratulations to all of that. And, oh, yeah, of course. And your most recent, as I can understand, is the Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, which you mentioned before. And did you flash the book test earlier? Did I see that cover pop up?
Of course, we carry our books everywhere just for this moment.
Well, you might as well. Yeah, tell us a little about that cover. And I believe all of your books follow a similar design to the same sort of character artworks. Tell me a little bit about that. Was that an intentional choice? Do you create the artwork yourself? How does that work?
So this is my amazing publisher at HarperCollins, Mira. Matzo Ball kind of started my first book, the big book that kind of launched me. Started with a very similar pattern. Rachel Rubenstein Goldblatt was sitting up the top here. She was in a little blue ball gown because that's part of the story. There was Jacob Greenberg, who was also kind of standing. But then as my books progressed, every book kind of took something different. So the teal is Mr. Perfect on Paper, my second book. The third book, which was Kissing Kosher, also plays into it if you see these like little leaf things and what they're doing. And then my fourth book after that was Magical Meet Cute. This pink that they're using is from Magical Meet Cute. And so the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, they did a beautiful thing, which was they took little bits and pieces of all my books and they sort of put it into the cover so that when you saw it as a Jean Meltzer fan, I think, you would immediately recognize that, oh, this is the writer of The Matzo Ball and Kissing Kosher and all these things. It's absolutely a brilliant, beautiful cover that really speaks to all the stories that came before it. I'm so sorry, I can't hear you, my dear.
My apologies. I was saying, I think it's great that the covers all follow a similar design because the audience, well, they see it on the shelves, they know it's you, and they know what to expect, and there's common tropes that could be in the books. So exactly. I love that. Well, this is a great opportunity then to transition right into the Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. So tell us a little about that. Did a certain event, inspire this book in particular, or was it just kind of drawn from the series that you had been creating?
So my first book, everybody knows I'm a really nice Jewish girl who loves Christmas. And that was sort of like kind of the theme of my first book. So I sort of wanted to go back. They would not let me write a Hanukkah romance, my publishers. I had to wait 5 books to do it again. And I knew I wanted to pay a little homage to a story I loved, a story that my mother always used. She's a psychologist growing up, which was A Christmas Carol. So I was talking to my mom one day and I said, I'm writing the outline. I always write the outline. And I'm like, but I'm not, it wasn't jiving yet. It wasn't really like the ending wasn't doing it for me. And she said, Jean, most people think of the Christmas Carol, it's a story about like looking at your past and changing your patterns. And she's like, that's true. But really what A Christmas Carol is about looking at your experiences from someone else's lens. And in that moment, I knew, it's like I saw the whole book open up and I was like, this is what this story is about. It's about a divorced couple who can't see each other's experiences through each other's lens. And what they need to learn in this journey of 8 heartbreaks of 8 ghosts is that they are each other's person, right? The other thing that was inspired by it was an experience with my little sister. I have always written stories where what is not visible is made seen. That is because I'm a chronically ill and disabled woman who most of my life I didn't have models, and most of my life people don't really understand what I live with. So I always have taken things that were not visible and made them seen. My little sister, after 3 years of infertility, finally got pregnant. We were all so excited. Literally on the same night, my father died within the same hour. She came in and she said to me, Jean, I'm pregnant. It's a boy. And what that means as Jewish women, as Ashkenazi Jewish women, was that that little boy would be able to take my father's name. That's what we do in our faith. So it felt like our beacon of hope, a blessing. The next time I saw her, good Jersey girl I am, was July 4th. Her belly was showing. I put my ear against it. I rubbed her belly. We were all so excited. And then she went in for her 21-week scan where she learned that the baby was not developing normally. Long story short, she wound up having to have what was called a TFMR, a termination for medical reasons. She was thrust into a system that was then overwhelmed because the laws had changed. And she had to repeatedly answer the question, was this baby wanted? And of course, it was devastating for her, so much so that she changed her entire life. After the fact, she's a therapist. She became a therapist who specialized in TFMR. And so I knew, as someone who had always, I know I see your sadness, I'm so sorry. I knew, as someone who's had my own sadness that was never seen, that I was going to write this story and make meaning from it for her. And I felt very strongly that I needed to tell this story, not just for her, but for all the women who have lost children, unborn children that they wanted, that they loved, that had never been seen. And because of that, I did it. I wrote this book knowing that this would be the main sort of underlying arc of the story. And the biggest honor is that since then, my sister has been able to say to me that she never got to tell the story of her unborn child because there wasn't a story to tell. But now this story travels all over the world. So many people have read it. And that made me truly understand the power of having a story to tell.
Well, that is absolutely beautiful, and thank you for being so vulnerable with all of us today. That's the most, the best thing you could do as an author is to be vulnerable and really just open up to your audience and to us. So thank you for that. I know it's not easy to talk about, just, remembering those experiences that she went through, especially with the writing process too. I'm sure just, outlining and thinking about it was definitely just difficult to do.
Yeah.
But and I could see that. What was the process like then, if you don't mind me kind of segueing into the writing process itself, taking that experience and turning it into like a fictional and comedy version?
A comedy.
So
it's funny because most of my books, I'm a very empathic author. I think about my audiences all the time. But with this book, it was actually in some weird way a little freeing because the only person I cared about was my sister and her husband and how they would feel. So it was very freeing in that I could write the stories in the way that I normally do, but that as long as my sister and her husband felt that their story was shared honestly, I was good. I couldn't control everything else. I love my baby sister. I mean, anyone who has sisters know it's the most intense, intimate relationship in the world. There's no one who can hurt you more or love you more. And I really wanted to make sure that this was in honor to her and in honor to her unborn child that did not get to live. Other than that, I just put my all into it. I just really tried to listen, really tried to understand, to do the research, and also to let her look at the pages to make sure that if I was telling her story, that it was accurate. The other part of it is she is now one of 3 psychologists in the country that actually counsel women and couples who have experienced TFMRs. So she was an excellent resource in getting it right. And I think, one thing about, if you know anything about me and my family, we are all women who tend to actively advocate in one way or another. My older sister is a bankruptcy attorney who runs like Women in Bankruptcy. That might sound familiar from this book. My little sister changed her life and became an advocate and did commercials for Josh Shapiro because of this experience. And I am someone who runs a company that advocates for and uplifts stories of Judaism and Jews beyond their trauma, that uplifts Jewish joy. So I'm very proud to be part of this sort of Meltzer tradition of fighting the good fight to make sure that things that are not visible are seen, and that women especially have all the resources they need to be the healthiest and happiest they can be.
It's definitely just inspiring to see that you've taken not only then your sister's story, but pretty much everyone in your life has taken something and turned it into their mission, and you're kind of embodying that in your books, as I can see. I mean, I understand even your own chronic illnesses you put into the book as well. So it's just wonderful that you're doing that. I think anybody reading this book, they're going into it thinking, I'm going to read about a fun Jewish holiday book, and it's going to be...
You are.
Yeah, and it is, but underlying, well, you have these messages, and I think that's really profound. And I guess at the end of the day, I mean, what do you think? What do you hope the readers take away with them after the end of these books that they carry on with them? Like, of course, it's more than just a silly book that they read for fun. They're carrying on a message. Is there a certain message that you hope they hold above others?
I feel like we can't always separate the author so much from the book. I am someone who's like really funny. I love having fun, but I'm also kind of a deep and thoughtful person. I'm someone, like I said, who lives for my values. So I love, and for the Jewish world, it's not, most of our stories, the primary action plot is kind of sad, right? And then maybe there's moments of joy inside. It's a Holocaust story or it's a war story. What we're doing is very revolutionary in romance because our primary action plot is joyous. It's about celebrating life and it's about getting a happy ending. But it doesn't mean that life is wobbly and fluffy and always fun. So we put those moments of reality underneath of it. For me, I'm also a reader who loves a good emotional roller coaster. And so for me, I can't just read a story that's just like fluffy. I need something in it that has a little bit of teeth, that teaches me something. So I write the books I like to read. I mean, I think that's exactly it. We don't separate too far the author from the story.
Right. And I like the message a lot. You can't separate the author from the story. It is you at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So that's just beautiful. So, of course, everyone, if you're interested in reading more about the 8 Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, you can check it out on Amazon. There's many other ways. So we're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today. But, we know about the main messages of this. But before we transition too much, I'm curious to know if you'd like to share a little bit about, the plot itself. I mean, our two main characters are exes. They may rekindle their relationship. So I'm curious to know, without spoilers, what makes their love story unique, and just to kind of shine a light on that.
So in Judaism, we have this concept called Besheret. Besheret is different than a soulmate. A Besheret is literally your other half of your soul. So not a soulmate, but literally the person that is designed for you, part of you, that helps you fulfill your mission here on earth. For me, I feel that very much. I believe in the concept of Besheret. I'm married to my best friend, my biggest supporter. And so, but I've also been married over 15 years. And what that means is I know what it's like to love someone so much, but also kind of want to put a pillow over their head when they're snoring at night. So that dichotomy of loving somebody, I love you, but also I hate you, I think is very normal in marriages. So I wanted to write a love story about this couple that is really meant for each other. They really are Besheret, perfect for each other. But life sometimes gets in the way. Our trauma sometimes gets in the way. Our worst experiences sometimes get in the way. But the moral of this sort of Hanukkah miracle story, or this holiday, Christmas story in a Hanukkah wrapping, is that even though sometimes people fall apart, they can fall together again. And I think that's a great lesson for all of us, no matter where you are, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what you've experienced, there can be happy endings.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that concept with us. If you don't mind, was it Bouchard?
Besheret.
Okay, I love that.
And I will say, for people who are listening and curious, if they're going through a divorce or someone died, in Judaism, we also believe you can have more than one Besheret, that people are there to help you fulfill your destiny sometimes at that time. So just because something didn't work out, it doesn't mean your Besheret for your next stage is not there. And same thing, your best friend can be a Besheret, a mother can be a Besheret, a child can be a Besheret. It's the idea that soul is part of your soul and there to help you fulfill your destiny.
That's so profound. I like that. There's so many people out there who feel lonely. They don't have the one romantically, but this kind of extends to so much beyond. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, guys, again, if you're inspired by Jean's story, you can definitely check out the book along with all of her other ones. We're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today. But something tells me you're nowhere near finished with your writing. You're started. So do you have any projects that we can be looking forward to that, maybe people should be staying on the lookout for?
All right, so guys, true story, and I'm so sorry to my fans about this. I actually took the year off of writing to do something called Jewish Joy Con. It's scheduled for March 13th to 15th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It is a groundbreaking three-day event, the ultimate celebration of Jewish creativity. If you're someone who loves bagels, if you're someone who laughed or took us off at Seinfeld, if you want to meet Mark Furstein and Peter Himmelman and all these amazing Jewish authors, celebrities, influencers in this loving, celebratory environment, come on out. We like to say Jewish joy is for everyone, and this party to celebrate Jewish joy is for you.
Well, I love that. Okay, well, can we put the links to the description box as well so people can find out more information?
Absolutely.
Sounds like a fun experience. A great way to connect people who just have similar interests and just to share joy and happiness. And Jewish joy does seem to be a resonating theme throughout everything you do. So yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up today, I'm curious to know if you have any other words of wisdom for the audience, especially the authors out there. Any types of writing tips that you found worked well for you that you'd like to share with others?
Absolutely. I will give you two big pieces of advice from my very long journey of ups and downs and all of that good stuff. Actually, maybe three pieces of advice. The first is on those days where you're being rejected or whatnot, or you got that query letter, or you feel like that book is not going to make it. Just remember that every day it happens for someone, and one day it will happen for you. Like literally everyone I started my publishing journey with wound up getting a book deal eventually. So don't give up, just stick with it. The second part of it, which it might seem contrary to the first part, but it's true. Don't put your worth into any book you write. Write the book because you love it. The truth is publishing is fickle. It's a long, protracted, makes no sense sort of business. You can write an amazing, perfect book and it can absolutely not get published. And you can write a mess of a book and it get published. So the point is, write your stories because you love them. Don't worry about the rest. If it happens, great. But if you know you wrote the story to your best of your ability, then you can go on to write the next book, and hopefully that one will be the one that hits. And finally, I also think like one of the mistakes you can sometimes make as a writer is you're always looking for the story that sells and instead of the story that is yours. Everything good in my life came from being authentic and honest. The stories I'm able to write, the Matzo Ball, Mr. Perfect, Kissing Kosher, Magical Meet Cute, and the 8 Heartbreaks of Hanukkah, those are only books that me, Jean Meltzer, could write because they're my experiences with Judaism, with writing, with television, with chronic illness. Don't chase the big thing. Tell your story. Your most important work is in your authenticity. So that's my final piece of advice. Write the book because you want it. Don't put your value into it. Tell your truth. And remember that you can write a perfect book and it go nowhere, and that's okay. It still could be a great book.
I love that. You definitely have a lot of inspiring tidbits to share with us. Quotes. So I think people have definitely learned a ton from this episode. It's been very enlightening and heartwarming too. And I love the way you talk. You're very bubbly and happy. It's a great
love joy. I love joy. Hold on to your joy. Fight for your joy. Write because it gives you joy. You call your podcast Authors on a Mission, right?
Yes.
That's a beautiful name. That's a value-driven name. I mean, that is what I do. So be an author on a mission,
Of course, I love that, and thank you for calling out our name too. We also are publishing companies, so guys, if you're inspired by, Jean's story and you want your own story to tell, help, reach out to us as well. We'll help you get your books out there just like Jean has. And at the end of the day, it is all about that joy. So spread the joy yourselves. Why not? I love that. Yeah. So guys, we're gonna put the links in the description box of this podcast. Click on over, get connected with Jean, check out her books, check out the upcoming festival, and until next time, everybody, just keep writing, keep leading, and keep spreading your mission. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.